The unofficial start to NBA trade season is here, and the Philadelphia 76ers have yet to dive into that pond. But with the Jared McCain injury, their urgency may have been increased a little bit, and they are now being linked to a former Sixers killer, Donte DiVincenzo himself. We're going to break down what the latest reports say, kind of surrounding these Sixers too, our thoughts on the topic, and whether or not Donte would be a nice fit on this team. And to dive into the reports right off the bat, we have two articles to work with here. Shout out Matt John, a guy that I did used to work with back in my heavy sports days, with this title, 76ers predicted to trade for $47 million, quote, jack of all trades to fill void left by Jared McCain. And to add a title two, we have 76ers set to leverage KJ Martin's contract in a $47 million trade to replace Jared McCain. Now, Ryan, before I throw it to you, let's hear out his case a little bit, as this was a surprising name to pop onto the feed here. And the article writes, there are three facets surrounding the Philadelphia 76ers. One, they need to climb out of the big hole that they unintentionally dug themselves into. Two, Jared McCain will be out indefinitely, meaning they will need a replacement. Third, they have KJ Martin's very appealing contract. These facts coincide, and they can use KJ Martin's contract to match the salaries to acquire McCain's replacement while they continue their playoff push. It is definitely doable, but it has to be for the right player. Fansided floated out Minnesota Timberwolves swingman Donte DiVincenzo. So before we dive deeper into this, do you want to hear your thoughts on kind of the perception of this? What's your level of surprise at DiVincenzo being a name mention, and could you see it happening, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, right before the season, that was one of the more shocking moves of this offseason
Yeah.
when Cat got traded to the Knicks, and then Donte DiVincenzo was obviously part of that package going back to the Timberwolves, and he has not looked like the player that we saw last year with New York. And I've always been a DiVincenzo fan, but I always thought he was a player that needed to kind of be in the right situation for you to get the most of him, and the Knicks certainly did that. And I was surprised because it seemed like they kind of like just threw him in there in that cat package. But it looks like the Knicks kind of knew what they were doing with the version that we've seen from DiVincenzo. He's really struggled this year. When you look at the Pacers series last year, he averaged 22.7 points per game in that series. He had
In the
39 points in
playoffs.
one game.
Yeah.
Yeah, 35 in another, 28 in another, 25 in another. He was a different beast last year. And when he's playing at a confidence and morale's high, he's a high level player for sure, a high level role player. But we have not seen that version of that this year, and to take on another big contract like that, the one that he has, and you just got to think: is he a head case? Is he a mental case for what happened with New York, and New York kind of just pushing him to the side? I'd be very shocked if the Sixers did make this move, and the version that of DiVincenzo that we'd be potentially getting, I would be very against it.
Yeah, it's interesting that I do think the Sixers' urgency could be increased a little bit following this McCain deal. I think everyone's a little bit surprised at how significant piece of a puzzle that Jared McCain has proven to be for the Sixers team. Really, their second or third best player for stretches during this injury-riddled kind of start to the season that they've been in the mix of. But it is interesting, like, how much the drop-off has been for DiVincenzo. We're talking about basically half the points per game, the shooting splits dropping from 40.1% last year to 31.9% from beyond the arc this season, playing just 24.8 minutes per game, has started just 2 of a possible 25 games after starting 63 of 81 last year. And that was one of the whispers that we sort of heard right before this trade broke, was about kind of his unhappiness or not really looking forward to returning to the bench. That, of course, following the addition of Mikal Bridges and, bringing all these pieces into that Knicks team there. And that seemed like a pathway where maybe when he gets sent up to Minnesota that he can have that opportunity to play. That has not played itself out there. Now, to continue a little bit on in the article and what is written here, did want to pull up this part which kind of lays it out, saying his scoring averages has dropped from 15.5 points to 8.3. His shooting percentages from 44.3% to 35.3%, and his three-point percentage from 40.1% to nearly 32%. That could make his trade value just low enough for the Sixers to buy low in a potential trade. How could the trade work between the Timberwolves and Sixers? Other factors would have to be at play, but a deal like this would be agreed upon in between the two teams. Sixers get DiVincenzo. The Timberwolves walk away with KJ Martin, Kyle Lowry, and Reggie Jackson. So I will throw a quick note in here that Kyle Lowry does have a no trade clause somehow because of his the experience in the league and re-signing on a veteran's minimum at his age and the years of service. So he would have to approve this. I don't think that's very likely at this stage in the game. But with that being said, I would be more than willing to just swap that right out for Eric Gordon, who frankly I have far more desire to get off the Sixers roster. Although he did hit 3 3-pointers the other night, the first time all season. So who knows? Maybe we're on the upswing there. But kind of that framework of the trade, Ryan, what do you think about that? Does it make sense for KJ Martin, for DiVincenzo to be the guy that KJ Martin is cashed in for?
Yeah, when you look at it from like a trade perspective, obviously there always has to be, two teams to tango. And when you look at it, like, why would they want to do that trade, the Timberwolves? I would have to think like KJ Martin has been a nice player, has had a good season, but still, I think what we've seen from Donte DiVincenzo in the past, I'd rather hold out hope that that player's still in there than basically just swap him for Martin and then two, aging veterans, whether you do swap in Eric Gordon in there and you keep Reggie Jackson. And when you look at the Timberwolves sitting there at 14-11, the 7 seed, like they're not having the type of season that the Sixers are having so far, where it's like, all right, maybe we just mail it in, we get this contract off the books, and now we have more space for next season. Like the Timberwolves are still kind of firmly in the mix there. They're a
Yeah.
game out of the 5 seed as well. So when you're talking from the Timberwolves perspective, I hold out hope that we can get half the version of what Donte DiVincenzo was in different stretches last year. Like if you look at the month of January last year, DiVincenzo averaged 15.6 points per game. February 21.7, March 19.2, April 20.6, and then the first round series against the playoffs, coincidentally, against the Sixers, he only averaged 12. But then that Pacers series, he averaged 22.7. Like this dude was a legit high level starter for basically half an NBA season last year. And for some reason, it hasn't fully clicked this year. But as we said with the Sixers a bunch too, there's still a lot of basketball to be played. If I'm the Timberwolves, I'm not looking at that contract or looking at that trade, excuse me, unless we fully believe that this is a lost season and we just want to clear up some space on the books for next year.
Yeah, the only thing that I could see swinging it is if there is some draft capital involved, and you can kind of talk them into that, which I could see Daryl and Morey opening up the cupboard for a move like that. And when you mentioned only 12 points per game against the Sixers, he still was certainly impactful in that series. Like defensively, you felt his presence, and that is an area where I think he's grown leaps and bounds. He clearly is a guy who adjusted to spending some time in Golden State and figuring out some of the off-ball motion. How do you free yourself up, fitting within a system, and a lot of stuff that I think has directly translated. So it's been pretty surprising to me that it has not translated to Minnesota or him having much success over here. Now, when looking down the Sixers team, I think the only reason that you do make a trade like that is if you believe Donte DiVincenzo is a guy who can log significant minutes. Now, I've been a Kelly Oubre defender. I still am. I'm thrilled with the minutes, the production that you've got from him, his buy-in defensively, his willingness to do the little things. That's a lot of the same stuff that DiVincenzo does. Do you think it would improve this Sixers team to have DiVincenzo, who theoretically the numbers do not back it up for this specific season, but is a better shooter than a guy like Kelly Oubre there? Would that be an upgrade in your mind at the 2 spot?
I think the version that we're seeing right now, I'd rather have Kelly Oubre because I feel like he's played really well
Yeah.
this year, and I feel like he's kind of just like grown into his role, accepted his role more so, and isn't trying to do too much. I feel like in the past we've seen him try to do too much and be a little bit over the top from what he actually is as a player. But I feel like he's fit in really well this year and has been one of the pleasant surprises. Once again, we go back to the situation where if that was the trade offer, Martin, and then just say, like you said, swapping Gordon and Reggie Jackson, I'm probably pulling the trigger there and maybe just hoping a change of scenery works out for the Sixers. But then you're also taking on his contract, and I don't know off the top of my head, I'm not sure if you do, how many years he has left on that deal. But we're not far removed from him being one of the better players on that Knicks team last year that gave us some trouble, obviously, and had a nice kind of stretch there in the playoffs for a team that wasn't expected to do much.
Yeah, 100% there. And as far as the contract exactly there, so he initially signed a 4-year, $13 million deal with the Milwaukee Bucks, which is a pretty bargain contract. He has 11 or 3 years left on it, so 11 mil per year. So that was the previous contract. So sign that with the Knicks. He's got 11 mil this year, 11.9 next year, 12.5 the following. So you do get 3 years of club control at a pretty reasonable price for that. Would be open to that if that would be a conversation. I think this has got to be Donte sort of leading the way and wanting out. And my last point that I will note on him is while I get the power of friendship that was kind of unlocked with him playing with the Knicks here, I think the power of hatred is even stronger, and him getting to go against them in a potential playoff series or something like that would be terrific. We have not been able to dig into that can of hatred that I still possess for this Knicks organization here because of the start to the Sixers season, but I do think Donte would absolutely be an asset if that is how things were to play out.
Yeah, Delaware native too, and as we know, Villanova player. Who knows? He might have grown up a Sixers fan as well. I haven't seen that on the record, but a little another potential chip to push in if you're saying it would be Dante trying to potentially lead the charge there. But I still go back to if I'm the Timberwolves, like what am I really getting out of that? KJ Martin has looked good. He's looked good in spurts, but is that really a move that for a team that was Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals last year?
Right below.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, but still made a deep run in the playoffs. Is that move getting us any closer to reaching the Western Conference Finals? I wouldn't say so. I would still hold my stock in DiVincenzo and hope over the Christmas over the New Year, he starts to kind of find a groove again. But it has been a pretty disastrous start to the season for him. But at the same time, that could fit in right with the Sixers and their disastrous start as well.
Yeah, 100% there. So who knows? Maybe two wrongs could make a right in this situation and they're onto something. But ultimately, a lot more trade chatter to break down. We are at that time of year where the rumors are starting to kick up. Each team has had a look at themselves for the beginning of this season, and the Sixers certainly not pleased with what they've seen on the floor. So Donte DiVincenzo may not be the move for now, but we're going to continue breaking things down as they come in here. Let us know your thoughts in the comment. Would you pull the trigger on that potential level of deal there? Do you think Donte DiVincenzo would be a differentiating factor or a needle mover for this Sixers team? Drop your thoughts below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. Make sure to smash that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video. And me and Ryan will be back talking with you next time. Peace.